Where do we start? Well, first I have to say, I don't know if you know, but for the last 21 years or so, every semester I teach a film, Green Dragons, in my class. And then each time I cry, right, for 20 years, about Camp Pendleton and a refugee experience, Vietnamese American refugee experience here. So now, 20 years later, right, you went from this to that. So how did that happen? And what do you love about vampire movie? And then what touched you about it? I mean, tell us a little bit what happened.
I didn't really set out. Is this working?
Is it working?
Hello?
Yeah, turn it on.
Oh, turn it on. Maybe turn it on. Yeah, there we go.
Hello.
Yep.
I didn't per se set out to do a vampire movie. Of course, I grew up in America, so vampire is a very well-known genre in the Western lore and mythology. Hello? Hello? Maybe I turned that one on. Yeah. But I think with Green Dragon, I think it's about also about isolation, about identity. Vietnamese people my experience, family experience, Vietnamese people coming to America trying to find identity. When I started living and working in Vietnam, it was kind of the reverse. Even though I was living in Vietnam, the motherland, but I'm still the foreigner. I'm still the guy on the outside. I'm still the guy trying to fit in. So kind of the vampire was kind of the metaphor, so to speak. So it was I think in 2015, it's been percolating in my mind for a long time. One day I hired a Honda driver. Back then there was no Uber or anything. And I just paid this one guy to drive me around the city. I was trying to find inspiration of what to do next. And I told him to stop at this bridge, and there was a sunset coming down. And it was just because it was a beautiful scenery, looking over, and I just wanted to take a picture. That's all it was. But then after I took the picture, I don't know if I noticed then or later, and I was looking at the camera later, the photo, it was a row of boats that was on the river. But it was the sunset, so all the boats were in silhouette. And the question that hit my mind was, who are these people who live there? I lived in the city for years, but I never ever stopped to even wonder who lived in these boats. And from that distance and the sun coming down, all the boats, the way they were lined up, looked like just coffins. So it was just the start of the genesis of thinking, I want to do maybe use the vampire as a way in to tell a more personal story.
Well, with the movie that you work with your brother in 3 seasons, and I think you were the producer and you had writing that stories, it seems like you have a preoccupations with the juxtapositions with people who live in the margin and modernity, right? Some people didn't catch up with modernity, and people who professional and very globals, right? Travelers and all that. And it seems like when you tell us about the story of you paying attention of people who live in the boats, right? It seems to me that it's similar, right? People who are outside on the margin of societies, and you looking down, right? And it seems like this is something that touched you, right? This contrast, and it's pretty intense, right? When you're there, and what is it about this? Because this is something that you've been exploring in different ways, and now through the trope of the vampire, these juxtapositions, and you say also something about being in the US, being a bit outsiders, trying to find out new identities, and in Vietnam, you are also outsiders, being identities, and here vampire people are on the outside too, right? People on the boat, they're outside, so to explore that identity from the outsiders and And yeah, so I just wanted to for you to think about what attracts you to these juxtapositions between the outsider and modernity.
I think just in Vietnam, there's such a disparity between the haves and the have-not, and it's all right next to each other. You would, a beautiful 4-story mansion would be right next to next door to a hut, and so it was just living in that world. I'm more curious about not the high risers or it's about the other people trying to find beauties in the crack, was where it started. But also really what I wanted to say in this film, it started in using the vampire only as a way in was just about, Marco's character. All he really wants to do is just live and be who he truly is. That's all he wants, but he lives in a world where he cannot. He lives in a world where he has to hide in the shadows. So the vampire was a perfect way in to kind of tell that story. And I love vampires, and Vietnam hasn't done one, so I thought, well, what a perfect, if I can make it, it would be great. There was no guarantee you can spend years writing this in Vietnam, no one would ever make it because it's not a common genre in Vietnam. So it was a risky endeavor, but it was one of those things where during COVID, also I had a lot of time to write on this. So it was one of those things where, okay, we'll just write it and let's see what happens.
Yeah, actually, that's make me think about the audience in Vietnam. I mean, it's amazing. That's the first, vampire movie, kind of, right, by a big production company in Vietnam. And here there is a trope that people are used to. I mean, most people, right, the trope of the empires. And there's a whole history of genre of vampire, but in Vietnam it's not, right? So when this story of ghosts, maybe, or villains, right, bad guys, but a vampire, people are not familiar. So, I mean, in one way, when I was thinking, you do a movie about vampire, maybe you can reach a wider audience, maybe in the US, who like the story of a vampire. But this is kind of different because it's set in Vietnam. But in Vietnam, the trope of vampire, if it doesn't exist, how people can say, does it resonate with people in the audience? Yeah. How does the movie is doing over there?
It's really hard in Vietnam for people to swallow this because it's very new. New in not in terms of the film, but in terms of there's never been Vietnamese vampires. So in the culture, that's why in the opening of the movie, I had to really explain as clear and, in a short, how even vampires got to Vietnam. In America, you don't have to explain it because growing up, it's all in Western literature. But in Vietnam, it isn't. So it's very strange for a local audience to see a Vietnamese face up there playing a Western style vampire. I didn't realize that. I thought, okay, you know what, they watch Twilight and stuff, but I realized later on that, yes, they can watch Twilight, but it's white people playing vampires. So to them, it's a foreign movie. Now you're so it was a challenge in marketing the film. It was one of the biggest concern and challenges in our marketing was how to get local audience to accept this universe.
Was it fun to make because there's a lot of sexy character and then there's a lot of costume, a lot of makeup, a lot of the special effects. I mean, did you enjoy making it?
Yeah, it's I'm blessed that I got to make it. It's one of the things that probably no one ever make another vampire film in Vietnam. I don't know, but the pre-production is always very fun. That's when you're really conceiving creatively the story. That's when you're collaborating with your department heads, the research. I had months and months of soft prep, which was great. A great costume design team and so forth. So that was the fun part. Making the film is never actually fun. It's you don't never have enough time. It's very stressful. Extremely long hours, very ambitious, film so many locations and visual effects. It's the first film where I did what had so many visual effects, and it's really difficult because you have to imagine what things are gonna be like without seeing it ahead of time. And you can plan all you want, if you don't have the experience of it, it's very nerve-wracking because you're like, how is that going to turn out? And you only can do your best to plan. You work with your visual effects supervisor to kind of help you. But it was the scariest and most nerve-wracking moment, because it's just, working, like, you know, how do you get an actor to perform as skin's filling in space when it's not really happening? So you're talking to him through it, slowly, imagining what it would be like, and then later on in visual effects, you're trying to, hopefully it works, you know, yeah.
Okay, one last question and open for Q&A. I read somewhere in an interview that you actually changed the script, right? In one, it was a different script, and then as you got into it, you changed it to make it more personal, right? So maybe just, you know, when I'm curious, like, which part, right, is more personal for you in this movie? I mean, I think you've talked, you know, elsewhere about issue of loneliness and the idea of being able to connect with people. But, you know, at the end of the movie, I'm a little, what happened there? Did Marco was right that this brother will not be able to last? You know, he will eventually beat her, or did she choose to be beaten, or was she a vampire all along, right? I mean, or do you want to tell, or it's up to the viewer to imagine the different ending, which make me think, like, my question about the personal. I mean, I've been looking into vampire story, and then some vampire, especially in the US, is very, in a way, a vampire who kind of fall for humans, and, you know, it kind of ends, you know, with a little bit of hope, right, that maybe they can control their nature, right, be, you know, maybe more sentimental or more emotions, versus I hear, like, in Japan, for example, this vampire story is no hope there. It's maybe certain genre is, you know, the vampire is very cruel and that's it, you know, there's no redemption for vampire. And so for you, you know, like between hope and despair, and then if you can shed light about what you meant to do with the ending of this movie.
You know, when you have a lot of time to write a script, when you go through so many versions, I think a lot of the earlier version was more focused on the couple, the young couple. I had scenes them going out on dates and all of that. But then I wanted to focus more on about the brothers more, I think, on later drafts and their conflict. And both point of views are right. You know, depends, you know, how you, I guess, who you identify with, but both brothers are right in their own way. You know, I've heard people say, well, yeah, but why didn't Vang just kill the girl? Because it's his brother. You know, but he has a curse that he doesn't want anyone to have, you know. And Marco loves his brother so much, he just wants him to be like him so they can be free together. That's really his whole driving force. And the moment he was able to escape from the compound, he realized what true freedom is, and inside there is really the lie, you know? And so that was more, I kind of focused more on that to make it more personal. And the ending was something that was written while we were shooting, because the actual ending, I just didn't have any money. Ran out of money. So I was like, shoot, how do oh man, I can't move location. The other ending, much more extras and stuff. So I had to figure out something that was simple, more personal, but still thematically kind of tied in, and wanted to leave it up more for interpretation. Yeah, the other ending was more like clearly what the ending was. This one I wanted to leave it more for interpretation on what you said could have been all three.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. It's a really beautifully, you know, it's film movie. Like, yeah. Anyway, so I would like to open room for questions. Any questions in the audience? I don't see anything.
Oh, there's one.
Yeah.
Hi, Tim. I was just curious, did you kind of have in mind that you wanted to kind of open up this genre for the future of films in Vietnam? Is that something that inspired you as well?
Yeah, you know, living and working in Vietnam, you hear a lot about, I mean, with the younger kids and stuff, like, oh, we want something new, you know, Vietnam cinema, kind of telling the same style filmmaking or stories. And I thought that would to be true, but maybe I was wrong. You know, so I guess you have to take baby steps. I think this was taking such a leap forward in Vietnam that for the mass audience, there were many people who got it, but just for the mass, that was just, they say, the Vietnamese, it was la wa. I don't know how you translate that. Too different.
Oh, they call me that too.
Yeah, too different. Yeah.
Well,
But you know, I think I got a lot of good feedback in terms of the execution and stuff, and I think from a production value, you know, especially the visual effects, we did a lot of stuff that allowed other filmmakers to see, what could be done in Vietnam.
Yeah, and I think honestly it was one of my favorite vampire movies of all time. So I thought it was really great, and I think that sometimes it might just take time, but it's very inspirational to have a film like this from Vietnam.
Oh, cool, thanks.
Any question?
Hello, I just want to know what your experience like or lack of experience in terms of censorship in Vietnam and producing this movie. I know that we mentioned in the beginning like this is an uncensored version, but what is it like getting movies out in Vietnam with, you know, everything as a you know, American Vietnamese going back to Vietnam? What is it like in that experience with censorship?
You know, in Vietnam, before you make a movie, so you have to submit a script. So that's the first phase to make sure, okay, you could even make the film. So when they approved the script, I forgot what some of the notes were. It was very vague. Don't make it too bloody. And I think that, and maybe the sex scene or something. And then there was some dialogue stuff. But that was, you know, Vietnam censorship has gotten much more liberal in over the years. This film couldn't have been made, when I first conceived it, like 4 or 5 years ago, every studio's like, no, that you won't pass censorship. So it took some time, and it just became, the timing was right for censorship to open up about it. I think then later on, some of the big notes was some of the action between the brothers at the end. I think I had to tone that down a little bit. Violence is okay. I think it got a little too brutal for them, so I had to trim that. And some stuff where it was just more bloody stuff.
I want to ask if there were like any like stories that really inspired, like the script writing. I was like, what's the word for that?
I'm sorry?
Like any like stories that like inspired you, like influenced like the script. You have
To
any?
make this film?
Yeah.
Oh gosh, you know, it wasn't like one. It was a bunch. There was oh yeah, there was a whole bunch of them along the way. I forgot. Yeah, there was one that was it was a black and white Kurosawa movie about the samurai and the what do you call it, the geisha. Forgot the title of it. And there was a movie about the two brothers who were fighters, warriors. Warriors was one, but that was more of my research later on. So it wasn't like I was inspired by a movie and then go made it. You know, you're growing up, you watch so many movies, things influence you. But so it's not like a movie that I wanted that directly inspired me. But I watched a lot of movies in my research while I was developing the story. there was a film called, it was a Taiwanese film, Better Days. Better Days, really good film that I researched. It was just emotional. It was about a girl who was being bullied and was befriended by a gangster. And it was such a beautiful, dark, heartfelt film. So it's a film I watched over and over to kind of get me ready emotionally to make the film. So there's a bunch of movies I watched before I made the film.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I'm just curious. I like knowing like people's like processes and stuff. So thank you.
What did you say? I didn't hear.
Oh,
Oh, thank you.
No, I just said thank you because I like hearing about people's like processes and stuff like that. So yeah, thank you.
But Better Days is a great film you guys should see.
Hi, so you mentioned there's another ending that you had originally envisioned, so I'm wondering if you would be willing to share what the original ending was.
What different ending, because we wrote the story.
I'd rather not. I'll ruin the moment. I'll ruin it. I want someone to say, oh, you should have went with the other ending.
Any questions?
A
Oh,
question
over there,
or,
oh my God.
or share how you feel about the movie, how you experienced it.
Hey, Mr. Boy,
Oh,
it almost made me cry at the end. It was really good and it's beautiful. I have one question for you. I know you probably written in English in this movie. How hard was it for you to translate this? Because I watched the script and frankly, I like what you wrote in English there and the translation in Vietnamese.
Yeah, you know, I write in English, so obviously, if you're in English, you probably read the way from the soul of what the film is should be. But obviously, you know, you have to translate it, and in translating it, you can't just translate it word for word. You lose everything. So a lot of the hard part was, in the translation, sometimes we had to figure out a whole different way, which has no connection to the English, but evokes the same emotion. So I worked with my writing partner who wrote in English. He helped translate it into Vietnamese. So he would call me a lot while he was translating. Oh, I can't translate this scene like this. Maybe we have to do it this way, but you'll get the same intent. Yeah. So it's yeah. That's my weakness, is I can't write Vietnamese, you know, right off the bat. So some of it may get lost, but you know, filmmaking is it's a visual medium. So I try to capture the emotion visually. Maybe the language or the intent, my English and Vietnamese may not connect 100%, but hopefully the visuals will.
Thank you very much. I really think this movie, people here will appreciate it a lot more than what you expect in Vietnam. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just pass it over here. I'm gonna get out of the light so you can see me better. Well done, Timothy. I've seen a lot of Vietnamese movies lately, and I saw Mai, I saw Fragile Flower, a lot of great movies. I think this is one of the best I've seen. And incidentally, about the ending, sometimes, you know, there's that famous story of Steven Spielberg with Jaws and the shark didn't work, but yet it made such an extraordinary film. So sometimes divine intervention plays a role where that ending was perfect. So I think that's going to work out. I just wanted to say that I personally loved the film. I thought the effects were amazing. I love that it wasn't just another cookie cutter type story that I've seen so many times. It looks like there's a little bit of a Shakespearean theatrics, in the sense where you see the hero's journey, you see love conquers all, you see some really valuable lessons that we get to be affected by from your film. And I just want to say well done. I want to make one more comment that with the success of, you know, China's had so much success in films, and then South Korea with Parasite. It's so nice to see the Vietnamese finally making a big noise in the cinema world, and movies like yours are going to continue that. So well done, and congratulations. I really enjoyed the film.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Final minute.
Let me ask one question that you brought up. Did anyone had any problem or felt it was too fast in the sense when the two young couples, how they came together, and that why he would protect her, that relationship? Or did it felt like okay? It felt okay.
It was fast. Yeah, it was fast. It wasn't with the flash, she said. It wasn't the flash.
For me,
Yeah.
for me it wasn't.
Around me, I thought it was fine.
Yeah, I believe in things like love at first sight, where you just kind of get someone's energy, and after a few hours, you can know if you like them or not. So I'm like, okay, that makes sense, you know? I don't know, maybe I filter differently.
Yes.
I thought it was fast, but at some point I didn't think of it as love being the main motive. So I
Yeah, that's right on.
Okay, whatever.
That's right on. You know, the reason I brought it up is very different culture. When I screened this in Vietnam, so many locals are like, there's no way those two would ever be together. In the sense of like, why they fall in love so fast? And I keep trying to explain, it's not love. It's not about love, romantic love. That wasn't the case. But and culturally, people see things differently. Yeah.
But what side of Vietnam are they on? Because the side of Vietnam that I lived in happened really fast.
There's a question over there. Andrea.
It's not a question, but it's the thing about the love happening, the relationship happening too fast. Are we past that subject now? Because I can pass the mic to another question.
Are we what?
Oh, you go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, I thought it moved too fast, but I don't think it really matters because I mean, to me, movies require like a lot of suspension of disbelief, and it doesn't have to be realistic. That's all.
Okay, cool. Yeah, as long as you were into it, it wasn't distracting.
I have one last question. Great movie, by the way. Huh? Well, that's a good question. So I think with production, there's a lot of things that happen where on the screen it looks really smooth, the quality is really great. Is there a moment or a scene or a part of the movie that was extremely challenging for you, Tim, where you were like, it's not gonna happen, I don't know if it's gonna turn out right, and then it just turned out great for you?
Oh my God, so many. You know, it's the thing about filmmaking, only you or people involved and it knows like all the sacrifices you have to make. Your vision is here in the day of shooting. You had to cut so many vision and figure out right on the spot how to glue it back together just enough to tell a story because it's time. One of the scenes I really didn't like at all, and every time is the scene where the human girl gets bullied and jumps on the gag of the young vampire, and she gets beat up. It's just we had no time. We had no time to shoot, and everything was so rushed that night because it was a company move. We shot somewhere else, and you only had 2 hours. Come here, set up, and shoot. And you know, in every film, at least for me, it's always about performance. And when you don't have enough time to do it, it's really frustrating. You're just trying to move, just because you're over time and so forth. Action is very hard, you know. So we had a lot of action. The motorcycle chase scene was done really, really fast. I had to leave in the middle of that shoot. We were filming the motorcycle chase scene. I had to leave, let someone else handle some of that, and go to the lake to shoot that final moment with the brothers. So that's part of like people don't understand, like, you know, it's just nerve-wracking. You had to go, okay, you finished these 5 shots for me. I gotta go to do the other one because if I miss the other one, we can't come back to the location. So those were anything with action was very difficult. I had to make a lot of sacrifices. You know, I cut even the brothers fight at the end. We had to come back. We were so overtime. I had to cut in the choreography like three different fight beats just to make the day.
Related to that, I have a question. If nobody else have a question. Okay, maybe not a question. Okay, question. Yes. So at the beginning, you know, I just also introduced you as an activist, right? Because I read that it was very important for you to have representation of Vietnamese on the screen. I saw that in an interview. I mean, you went to Vietnam to make movie. Why is it? Is it easier for artists like you to make movie in Vietnam than here? There's more barriers for you know, directors of color here. I mean, why going to Vietnam and not doing here when you have an audience, for example, for Vampire, and not in Vietnam?
It was just opportunity. I have a few projects I'm developing here, you know, still. And I had an opportunity a few years ago to go back there. You know, Vietnam is an emerging country. Every sector of Vietnam is growing. And people were building theaters, but they needed content. And I had a lot of friends who were filmmakers who went first and made films and were able to tell stories, personal stories. And so I tried a few and, you know, found some success and just kept going. And it's exciting shooting there. People always say, what is it like shooting there or in the US? It's different, you know. Vietnam, when you make a film in Vietnam, it's like, the energy is like film school. Yeah, it's like film school. Crew is less experienced, obviously here, you know, it's such a advanced industry. In Vietnam, it's not advanced in terms of the craftsmen, but what makes up for it is in the passion. They work, they don't complain, everyone it's like a family working together. It's not divisive, like your department only does this. I had people jump with the lake stuff, different department, you needed something, time's running out, it's family. There's a saying in Vietnamese, it's like anh em bà con, you know, it's very tight. You need something, they'll jump in the water and just do it. We don't have time to call anyone else. So it's like that film school element. Everyone is there to help you finish and make sacrifice to film, because everyone knows how hard it is to make a film in Vietnam. Our budgets are very limited. It's not like, you know, in Hollywood film. So, you know, this film I shot 42 days. If this film was made here, it'd probably be like a $20 million movie, probably, in terms of what it would take. Over there's a fraction of the budget.
Great. All right. Yes, okay. Well, thank you so much, Timothy.
Thank you.
Thank you very